Welcome to this installment of Brave New World on ContextTV. I was reading an interesting article in the New York Times called "Restarting America Means Many People Will Die, so when do we do it?" One of the contributors actually drew a parallel to the Vietnam War, so it kind of led me to think about all these different themes that I myself was thinking about, which is, without vaccine and without testing, there's no real obvious path to flip a switch and get back to normal. It's going to happen in waves. And then when I was talking about the work from home revolution, I was basically alluding to the fact that, employees with kids are basically tripling up being employees, being parents and teachers, and they more or less have to kind of throw out the playbook, whereas employees without kids can maintain some semblance of normalcy even if they're working in isolation. What's interesting about the Vietnam analogy is, well, one way that it's absolutely not like Vietnam is the fact that Vietnam was an event throughout American history where the casualties included far younger people. You were sending young kids, for lack of better words, to the front line, many of them unfortunately not coming back, and those who did come back had mental trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder for decades to come. But in another way where I feel it is a little bit like Vietnam is specifically that it is going to dramatically force the maturity of an entire generation that, let's be honest, while some of the brash, broad stroke generalizations around millennials, those born from 1980 to 96, are unfair, some of it has been somewhat valid when you think of helicopter parenting, when you think of just coddling, when you think of the fact that really, sure, you had 9/11, you had the Great Recession of 2008, but it's not necessarily a generation that, to be fair, has been tested like previous generations. They've been tested in different ways, also tack on student debt and many other things, but it hasn't been tested the way that like previous generations went through the Great Depression or World War II and whatnot. In any case, I think that if you break down the different challenges that we face, there's the mental, there's the physical actual health, which is affecting older people. Corona is affecting older people with conditions than younger citizens. And then there's financial. And I think if you really break it down and realistically read between the lines of what's happening at these media companies who are coming out and saying that they don't necessarily even know the full impact of COVID on their operations, but in the meantime, certain people making X dollars and more are going to take a 10, 20, 30% pay reduction, and then some C-level execs are basically saying they're going to take a 50% reduction or even forego their salary altogether. I think what you would have seen, which was over the next decade, an exodus of more experienced managers and executives leave these companies to make room for younger employees who are probably a bit more comfortable with technology, but also, let's face it, cheaper. I think you're going to see that in the next 3 months to 18 months at most. I think the first step of just saying, look, we're going to basically cut salaries by 20, 30% is nice, but you are looking at dramatically smaller businesses in many ways. Disney's Bob Iger came out recently and basically said that in the future, they have to re-engineer and reimagine the theme parks and the cruises with basically people being more spread out, which not even sure you can make that happen. 2, there's going to be, different kind of testing before you walk into a cruise or a theme park. Again, it's all in theory sounds good, but either way you dice it, you're looking at businesses that are going to have to be smaller than the massive scale that they got, and that's the nature of industry and companies. You go through periods where things grow, and then you kind of get a bit too big and you got to pare down, and then other companies are going to also come out in a stronger position than some of the other ones, such as Amazon. But in any case, I think if you are a millennial, even more so than a Gen Y, Gen Z employee, I think you have this opportunity now to step up, and I think it's less about want or desire. There's going to be this need. I think ultimately the leaders of these organizations and like the different stakeholders of these organizations, the clients, suppliers, vendors, investors, the community is going to be looking at the millennial generation and basically expecting them to step up. And again, while that might scare some, and that might be something that has not yet been asked of this millennial generation, I absolutely think that like every other generation, many of them are going to step up, and that might be one of the silver linings of the corona spillover effects.